computer. Hello, everybody. We are back. I'm working from home today. I'm Sarah Palmer from the Kensington branch, and
I'm Linda Yao, and I'm actually on site today at Northeast Regional.
Yes, we thought we would want to give you some of the atmosphere of
where we are right now.
Yes. So our topic today is primarily BL and GL, which are abbreviations for boys love and girls love. Shall I go ahead and talk a bit about the terminology and you hop in?
Okay, sure, I can do that.
So, BL is especially originated, or it originated in the 1990s as a term. But it was around long before that. And it's a genre that is typically created by women for women. That's not across the board. Then we've shonen ai is a somewhat obsolete term in Japan, although it's still widely used in the West. Also describing boys' love. Yaoi is a term that is not so much used in Japan currently, but it is used a great deal in elsewhere in the world to this day. That's a portmanteau of Yamanashi, Ochinashi, Minashi. No climax, no point, no meaning, which is kind of self-deprecating. And then GL is girls' love. A lot of people in the West would call it shoujo-ai, but you should be very careful about that because in Japan, shoujo-ai means pedophilia involving young girls. So I think it was sort of backformed perhaps by Western fans thinking that if shonen-ai was okay, shoujo-ai would also be okay, but it didn't work that way.
Yuri is also Japanese for lily, so it's a lily tribe.
Yes, which actually...
Yaoi is the first term I heard back in the 90s that talks about shonen-ai.
Right.
And to me, yaoi means more of a teen versus shonen-ai, which I refer to as with shota. Shota means.
Yeah, that's not exactly how I would interpret it. I would interpret shonen-ai as not being shota, maybe being high school age, and yaoi ranging from high school age to adult in terms of the characters and also in terms of the themes. Then, of course, we have special names for the fans of these works. Fujoshi, meaning rodden young woman, is a term that emerged in the early 2000s in places like 2chan. The original term was kind of a way of insulting how female readers would sometimes read male pairings into mainstream manga. And so people thought that was a rotten way of looking at the manga. But again, being self-deprecating, a lot of fans took it over as a term and are now proud Fujoshi. I believe Fudanshi as a term emerged afterwards. It's describing men who are also fans of boys' love. And there
Have you met?
What's that?
Have you met Fudanshis before? I've never really noticed Fudanshi. I've seen it in anime, but I've seen it.
I've met a number. Yeah, and they definitely show up in manga characters, including as lead characters sometimes.
That also reminds me. There's a neighborhood in Ikebukuro in Tokyo, Japan, known as Otome Rodo. It's like a 2-3 blocks kind of an area beyond Sunshine City in Japan, Tokyo, that has bookstores that specialize that sells BL
Mm-hmm.
manga as well as doujinshis and merchandise.
Yes.
And also butler cafes, if you're interested in that.
Very cool. And otome, I believe, means maiden.
Mm-hmm,
So it's like road for the maidens.
Yes.
So, okay, I'm going to talk about reception after I talk a little bit about the history of BL and also the history of male sexuality in Japan, which I'm going to speed through also.
That's also known as bara. That is what I like.
Okay, yeah, well, bara is not, gay komi is more the term that would be used by gay men to refer to.
Yeah, I know.
Bara is
I know.
yet another word that Westerners just jumped on and went running away with, which is not really
No,
not really
it's not
represent
relevant.
how the authors feel about themselves currently.
I know. It's a fan.
Yeah.
It's a fan term. It's a fan.
Yeah.
Fan term.
Yeah, and it's sort of like the sound of it because it reminds me of bear, and bara is used to refer to the manga that show muscled and strong masculine men.
I actually don't think about that. I think bara sounds like rose, but it's okay.
But no, bara
So
doesn't
right
mean
now-
rose. But to me, it sounds that way, is what I'm saying.
Ah.
Okay. So a quick note on male sexuality in Japanese history.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually, I've got my two handy dandy reference books here. One is called Comrade Loves of the Samurai by Ihara Saikaku, who's actually a 17th century author who wrote about all different kinds of romance and sexuality, including male sexuality. And the jacket text, I haven't read these books yet, I must confess. The jacket text says, sons of samurai families were urged to form homosexual liaisons while youth lasted, and often these loves matured into lifelong companionships. And then here's Cartographies of Desire by Gregory Plouffelder. And this is Male Sexuality in Japanese Discourse, 1600 to 1950. And he points out that the popular expressions of the ways of youth, which was called shudo in Japan, embodied a pleasure-centered and initiatory understanding of sexuality that coexisted with a formidable array of juridical mechanisms for regulating male-male's erotic behavior. So, in other words, literature really enjoyed delving into these relationships, and to some extent reality reflected them, but there were also major barriers imposed on them legally on expressions of male sexuality. As the Meiji era rolled around, that's when more of the Western influence of criminalizing and you sort of demonizing male sexuality that sort of migrated into Japanese culture as well. So
I just remembered that I remember that a couple of years ago I saw that there was academic books,
yes,
or like media cultures, because there was research about what fujoshi is.
Yeah, there's so many academic works now, more than you can shake a stick at. Now, a big moment for BL manga, for what would become known as BL manga, happened in around the early 1970s. At that time, there were a bunch of female mangaka born in or around 1949, Showa era 24, became hugely influential in shoujo manga. Among them were Moto Hajio and was it Keiko Takemiya, and these mangaka produced a lot of shoujo titles, but at at some point, they were introduced to the magazine Barazoku, which was a magazine targeted at gay men, and they caught on to the story potential of male stories and romances, and so that's where they started delving into. Moto Hagio wrote The Song of Wind and Trees. Keiko Takemiya wrote The Heart of Thomas. Actually, I think I got those mixed up. I meant to correct that.
Isn't it Rosa? Isn't it Rosa Versailles also considered to be a, because cross gender play is also considered to be a trope of Yuri. Actually, I think of it as a trope of Yuri.
Actually, just a little bit down, I'm going to talk about that. So, Year 24 group, the mangaka born in 1949, also started popularizing Yuri. So,
I think Osamu Tezuka also did Princess Knight, and that was popularized.
Yeah,
with
that was
Yuri.
Yeah. So, even though earlier there had been stories called Class S stories, which were stories focused especially on intense emotions, romantic emotions, but romantic yet platonic. It's sort of a weird mix between classmates at all girls' schools. Those relationships were generally seen as something that happened only in that confined environment, and they sort of graduate into heterosexuality, heteronormativity from there. The stories that started getting published, for example, you mentioned Rose of Versailles, who has by Ryoko Ikeda, and she also wrote some more explicitly Yuri titles, and Ryoko Yamagishi, the Shiroi Heia no Futari. A lot of these stories often feature an older, more sophisticated woman and a younger, more awkward partner. And very often they end in tragedy, usually offing the more sophisticated partner. Takarazuka, could you say a bit about Takarazuka and what it is in a nutshell?
Oh yeah, Takarazuka is their home base is in Ginza, in Tokyo. So it's a group of all female theater group. They would put on musicals where everyone in the cast is a female. So they would have females playing the male roles, and it's, think about it like a comparison with Haruka Tendo and Michiru Kaio from Sailor Moon. So it's the coolness aspect of it with the male leads that garners a lot of female fans. I've actually gone to see a Tezuka production when they came one time to come to the US. So they have a very interesting way of representing Western media, as well as also the glamours of what you would see something very similar to like Brazilian, or where they actually it's very circus like.
Oh, I see what you mean. Sort of like
peacock kind of a thing, feathers, lots and lots of feathers. So I remember that. It's like a very grandeur kind of a performance, but it is the only all-female theater troupe that is in Japan.
Yeah. And Takarazuka, which has been around, I believe, for maybe 100 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
has been very influential. It was, especially at the beginning, influential in how characters were depicted early on in Yuri. So there might tend to be a sort of more masculine-looking partner and a more feminine-looking partner. Although I don't think butch femme can entirely be mapped on to that.
There's a huge following for any and all of the specifics of the Tezuka.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing that because it was very awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
So think of it real as fan clubs and incredible groups of females having fans for females.
Absolutely. So one thing I wanted to mention about BL is that, as we said before, it emerged primarily as a concept of manga by women, especially for women, which can lead, as you may imagine, to a certain lack of realism in ways people relate to each other. A lot of tropes emerge, like a very distinct differences between the seme, the giver, and the bouquet, the receiver, or tachi and neko, which do not necessarily reflect real life relationships.
It doesn't, but it portrays like an easier way of digressing stereotypical gender roles.
Yeah, it's sort of playing with them, but also introducing sort of forbidden love aspect and things like that. So there's a lot of reasons why BL initially appealed to people, and some of those reasons are still there, and some of those reasons may have changed over time. So some of the LGBTQ community has rightful critiques about BL, and then there's also some appreciation that LGBTQ folk feel for being represented at all. I mean, that sounds like that sounds kind of pitiful, and we definitely have a much bigger wealth of true representation now, but it was still meaningful in having LGBTQ themes enter the discourse of the manga world. At this stage, I want to share a comic with you, which for me illustrates one of the critical issues of one of the needs for what's called own voices, #own voices. And own voices would be referring to books written about an experience by the people who have that experience. Or I should say media created by. Let me share my screen, just one moment. There you are. Okay, do you see that?
Well, I'm seeing something. It's that circle.
Yeah. Oh. So this is by Megan, a comic by Megan Nicole Dong. Do you see the comic now?
I do see the comic.
Yes.
It looks really cute.
Yes. So we've got a toad and a cat. Toad says, "There are so many stories about cats and so few tales of toads. I would love to share more toad stories with the world." The cat says, "My God, you are right." And the cat puts a consoling paw on the toad's shoulder and says, "There should be more stories about your kind." And further says, I will tell these stories about your kind." And the last panel is the toad looking bewildered as the cat puts on a toad hat and runs off to tell the stories of toad kind.
So it's a fan of a cat supporting. Oh my gosh, funny.
Yes, it's funny and sad because it's true.
Yeah, it is.
So let's stop here. Then there's the reception by mainstream manga readers of the categories of the genre BL. And it's not always friendly, but it is at least showing up in some places, and it shows up in a place none other than Naruto. And I'm going to share certain pages that were slightly censored when they got published in English.
Censorship.
Yes, which is another matter altogether. But, okay, let me.
Censorship. Oh my god.
Give me a second. Don't do that. Okay.
Because the thing is that I think doujins also represents a fandom culture representation of what is BL and Yuri.
Yeah, we
and
could
all that.
Go a lot into doujin, and I actually have an example here.
It's a lot into doujins.
Yeah.
I have doujins, but they're all very exclusively gay komi.
Cool.
I don't think you like that.
Not necessarily. I'm not saying I dislike gay comedy. I just haven't delved into it as much. And in general, I'm slightly
Okay,
more
well, gay
inclined towards
comedies kind
the
of comic
romance
strips.
versus the explicit, although I have enjoyed my share of explicitness. And so, excuse me, I'm sharing my screen again.
We are
Where
kind
did
of
it go?
we're kind of going on tangents right now as I'm waiting for Sarah's screen.
Yes, here we go again. Advanced files, basic. Where did you go? Why do you always disappear when I need you? Yeah. All right. Okay, it should show up now. Okay. Zoom. I need to invest in some. Okay. Is it showing now or not yet?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
I still see your lovely face, Sarah.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. I'm so lovely. What the heck? Okay. I'm gonna do. I'm so baffled. Okay. Oh, here's show all windows. That's more like it. There we go. So, do you see it now?
I see the circle. Ah.
Now, do you see YouTube?
I do see YouTube.
Okay, so somebody has taken the particular pages from one of the Shippuden arc volumes. And so we have older, some characters of some people in the ninja clan who have aged since the last time the main character Naruto saw them. And these guys kind of look up to Naruto and some of the jutsu he perfected, including the sexy no jutsu. So you're going to see a bit about that. Oh, wait, hang on. Yeah, okay. So, okay, let me make this big. Okay. So, Naruto says to Konohamaru, "So you finally learned the shadow clone technique." Sakura says, "Huh?" And Takashi is surprised. And, oh, what's his face? Sai, as usual, has no expression whatsoever. Naruto says, "Let's see how good you've got and don't hold back." And Konohamaru says, "Here I come, Naruto-ni-chan." And sexy no jutsu girl on girl version. And if people already, if the opponents of Konohamaru already were intimidated by the original sexy no jutsu, this presumably would be double the effectiveness. And here are the reactions. Naruto says, "Yes, you're a genius." Sakura has no words, but a lot of rage. And Kakashi and Sai, again, don't have anything to say.
Oh, how about, oh my god, how about, oh my god. What happens if you imagine what Jiraiya-sensei would see it?
Oh god, yes.
Oh, nosebleeds everywhere.
Konohamaru says, "How was that?" And I get the two girls and I make them. And Sakura neatly shuts him down with a huge punch, and I don't think we need an explanation. And she yells, "Is this all you two do when you hang out, huh?" And Naruto says, "He's up, that this is an excellent distraction. Plus, it's kind of a contest the two of us have." Okay, coming next.
I haven't seen Naruto in so long.
Yeah. Now Sakura responds, "All you're doing is making your stupid perverted jutsu even worse. And a distraction? The only people who'd fall for that are the two of you." Okay, so Konohamaru is taking this as a challenge. Sexy no jutsu boy on boy version. And this is the panel which got censored in the U.S. version. They just couldn't bear to show these characters in that way. So they, instead of having the full-on image, they create silhouettes out of those characters.
Oh gosh.
Which that infuriated me, but oh well.
Oh, censorship is interesting.
It's very interesting. Yeah, the Sexy no Jutsu female form didn't bother anybody, but hey, you're a genius, Sakura. With the nosebleed.
Naruto has that face. And then...
completely disgusted. Kakashi's still nothing to say, and I says, it's me and Sasuke-kun.
Oh god. Oh gosh. Oh yeah, that's the thing.
I don't want to see nasty crap like that, says Naruto. And Sakura says, right, I never fall for a silly jutsu like that. You need to work in some more effective tech. And she is startled to see everybody else gazing at her in complete silence. What? I'm not into that kind of stuff, I promise. No Fujoshi here. You might add. Birds of a feather flock together, which I take to mean that both Naruto and Sakura have fallen prey to his jutsu.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you will also see BL allusions in a lot of other mainstream manga and injury allusions.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go back to our thing and come on, where did he go? Did you want to talk a little bit about Geikomi?
Oh, I thought we were gonna go on BL. Well, Geikomi is usually targeted towards gay men. It is very explicit. It is 18 plus normally. I fit into that category of BL Fujoshi category where it's like 14. My friend had said to me, she says I fit in the 14% category. Censorship is very interesting with Geikomi. You're normally seen as an underground movement, and a lot of gay komi artists are oftentimes, you would never see their faces because they don't want other people to know that they're into gay komi. I remember reading a gay komi artist. He was very frank with saying, I don't want any pictures of myself in mainstream. So it was one of those things, and I respect them for that. I support gay komi, even though I'm not the right gender for it. Last time when they had a censorship law passed in Japan, Tokyo, because they're preparing for the Olympics, right? So a couple of years ago, they started censoring everything. And so a lot of times you'll see very interesting placements of censorship of certain male parts like glitter or stars or like the typical black line through everything.
Although often the black line does not cover very much.
Does not do anything, or you could oftentimes use Post-it notes, because that's what a publisher had once told me that they did to censor it before on the spot. They actually had to Post-it note everything in the book.
But
so that they can actually market it.
A major other technique for censoring is what's called cone of light. So you'll see the completely naked protagonist, and in the specific place where you might see some equipment, this
Yep. I think the most famous way of censorship is if you ever see the American version of Sailor Moon versus the Japanese version of Sailor Moon. Because the silhouette is very apparent. There's also other things that may probably get censored if it gets over here, that is. Like Cutie Honey is for one thing.
Yeah, and yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Huge censorship of a lot of things, including the black magic stuff. Excuse me for a moment. I am going to pause the recording while I go answer the door. Hey, we're back. Did you want to say a little bit about cosplay?
So a lot of my friends who are considered to be definitely in the midst of all Fujoshi stuff, they enjoy everything of Fujoshi. They would oftentimes do photo shoots specifically of acting out certain scenes in BL graphic novels, as well as I've heard of a couple of times where, because of strapping on to be a male BL character, it takes a lot of dedication. Granted, I also fell asleep in one of the photo shoots.
Oh dear. And BL themed cosplay is not limited to actual BL. It's also it also can involve, say, big windup, the baseball series, or Kyokara Mao. Kyokara Mao is really, it has a BL tinge, but it's also really good at queer baiting. Queer baiting is when there's a hint of homoerotica or same gender romance, and so fans coming running, but they never get the satisfaction of an actual relationship or an explicit confession or anything of that nature. So that's when fans take things into their own hands with fan fiction, fan art, and videos, and these fan photo shoots. And that's really where doujinshi come from. And here's one example of a doujin featuring Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters Aiba and Jinochi.
I have
caught dead in canon doing this, but fortunately we have fanon.
I have One Piece doujins with Sanji and Zoro.
Yeah.
So should we go on to our book choices for Yo and for other things?
Yes, we should.
Okay. Do you want to start first, or should I start first?
Why don't you start first?
Okay. So I actually have two titles, or one title. Let's see. One of them happens to be my choices. All right. What Did You Eat Yesterday by Fumi Yoshinaga. Fumi Yoshinaga is a mangaka that would straddle general and BL topics. All right.
Yeah.
So guess what you had? Well, What Did You Eat Yesterday is published by Vertical, and I always mess up the name to the point where the marketing director had asked me, "What am I talking about?" So it is not marketed as a BL book, but I still love the series. A main couple in this book series is gay, and there is another couple that's featured in the book as gay. This is probably a seinen title, since the main characters, Shido and Kenji, are considered to be working adults. So that is probably why the book series is not marketed towards females, even though I always keep telling my friend who used to work in Vertical to tell him to market the book as for Fujoshi fans, because he always complained that it was in the red for the American public. So every chapter shows that Shido, who is still in the closet lawyer, he's always preparing home cooked meals. So for himself and his flamboyant out of closet hairstylist, Kenji. So the book oftentimes remarks closely like a cookbook, because every single recipe that you see that Kenji does, Shido does, sorry, it would you could actually prepare it yourself. And so there's actually a live action and a movie to this title. So Fumi Yoshinaga is the one that they choose because she's the most, her artwork is very prevalent in the BL series. Because she did Antique Bakery and she did do Oku, which there's a huge fan following. And also one interesting fact, all of her doujinshis are considered, she does doujinshis that are more, if she writes a manga, right? And it's not, you could probably see it as queer baiting or something like that. But whenever she does her doujinshi, she actually does more of the gay side of things.
It all becomes
And
more
then it is
explicit.
the most, it is the most expensive. Meaning that if you even go into the secondhand bookstores, her books are always like probably $60 and above to buy
Yeah,
for dojins.
I'm not surprised.
Okay, my second book happens to be, it is called A Foreign Love Affair, and it is by Ayano Yamane, and this is published by Digital Manga Publishing. So this is a love story between a Japanese Yakuza and an Italian boat captain. So there's only one book for this, and I'm contemplating if it's actually out of print or not. I think it is out of print. This is a very highly romantic story, and it's also quintessential to Yamane's art, she is a very popular BL and yaoi and BL mangaka. So she is primarily known by US fans for her Finder series, as well as her Crimson Spell books.
Yeah.
Her art is just as pretty. And to confirm, this is an actual out of print book. But the there is an anime OVA for A Foreign Love Affair. So definitely do try it to see it if you can. But it's also, it's also an illegal fan sub. So never mind about that.
Yes, we cannot recommend that officially.
Not sure if I could recommend that either, but I definitely do also recommend these books titles if you want. And these books, some of these book titles are available from the free library. And these kind of include 10 count, Ginger Romantica, Sekai Ichi Hatsukoi, Dokyuse, which is classmates, and Sekai Ichi Hatsukoi means the world's first love affair. Junjo Romantica is probably innocent love. Yeah. That's also with Junjo Terrorist and Junjo Egoist. Yeah. And then I hear the Sunspot and Loveless is also considered to be. So excuse my naming for the Japanese titles, because either if they're non-licensed or they're not, and they're also streaming through Crunchyroll or not, they are what I normally hear when I hear Japanese series.
Yeah. Actually, you've touched on a few that I want to touch on in a little more detail. But did you also want to talk about the specific gay komi titles while you're at it?
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Gay komi, gay comics.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so many. Okay, this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart because it's probably too explicit for Sarah. This is oftentimes a category that is for 18 plus, always constantly 18 plus. However, there is one book that is definitely available for general all age audience, and that is by that is My Brother's Husband, which I actually did remark it as a hashtag own voices title.
Yeah.
But I could definitely recommend this book. This is written by Gengoro Tagame, and it is published by Pantheon Books, and it talks about how the story is about a Japanese man, and he meets his late twin brother's husband, Canadian husband, who comes to visit Japan, and how he gets over his homophobia tendencies. And so this was actually groundbreaking in the fact that this is the first time I've ever seen Gengoro Tagame actually do a non-18 plus title. I've mostly read all of his, I'm a huge fan for all of his other works that get translated in English. Yeah. And
to show off his mainstream chops.
He got to show off his mainstream chops, yeah, because after Fumio Yoshinaga came out with, What Did You Yesterday? Yeah. I'm actually trying to say, guess what you had yesterday? I'm mixing up with that. So he actually did something. One thing of his manga that I really like, there are two titles I would probably talk about, is one of them is Fisherman's Lodge. And this is by Bruno Gemunde. It's a German company that has been bankrupt since it's published several books, but it's currently German publisher that merged into other companies, right? Mhm. This is out of print, so I could definitely say this is $700 plus. If you need to buy used copy of this version, it's $700 plus until it gets licensed again. So I don't believe Free Library will ever get this book because it's 18 plus, and it could get censored with this one. So I would get my hands on all and everything. So this actually, Fisherman's Log actually has a daddy. Should I talk about it? It's a daddy love story kind of scenario.
Sure. Yeah.
It talks about an old man. He is trying to hunch down for the winter, and so they're trying to figure out who could, be with him all those months that he's not anywhere near civilization. So another book I definitely also recommend is Massive. It's Massive, which is a gay Japanese manga, and the men who make it. It's an anthology from Fantagraphics. And this is one of my favorite books that got released a year ago because this is the first gay komi, like feature representation from many of the more popular gay komi authors. So there is a lot of, the one good thing about this book series is the fact that there are essays that has a conversation that talks with every gay komi about their influence with what is gay komi, what is the industry been like for them. And this book is seriously 18 plus, and I will stress that if Free Library acquires this, it will be censored. I just happen to love this book, so I have like 3-4 copies of this book, and it is published by a friend. So
that's fair.
Translated by a friend. So I was pretty much supporting her when she was doing a marketing thing. Oh, I also have a very interesting story that talks about Gengara Tagame that I actually did follow. I did chase after him like an artist, like a movie star would. I chased after him going from New York to Canada specifically for him, where he was actually selling a dojin of his works there, and I just said I'm gonna go buy it, and so I bought it. Oh, Massive also, actually no, one of his titles actually was published in English a couple years ago. It went out of print before it got re-released again, and I remember it was $500 plus for used. So it's a very heavily censored, not censored, it's a heavily targeted towards gay men title, which I also got. I got banned. No. I got banned from a bookstore because of that. I got pushed out of a bookstore because I wasn't the right target audience. So, but I think my friend calls me part of that 14%.
Yes.
Of the Fujoshi category. So, how about you? What do you think? What is your choices?
I have so many choices. And to me, it feels like if I'm going to do the BL choices justice, I won't be able to do the Yuri titles justice. And I'm wondering would you mind if we next time left the Yuri to next time?
Okay, we could do that.
Okay. So we've, I should start by saying some of my preferences in BL. So I definitely prefer either consent, there to be enthusiastic consent in relationships, or if there's dubious consent, that it's handled realistically and not as a precursor to, oh, happy, love, everybody's okay. And so that's one important thing. There are some things that I feel a little awkward reading, but I will still read, such as some teacher-student relationships. But they still make me feel a little weird. And I definitely like adult relationships most because it feels that, the power differential is just not there. I don't mind
no qualms about reading anything and everything.
Yeah, I don't mind the age gap so long as they're both adults. But one other thing I wanted to mention quickly in general about BL manga is that normally do not result in a full-scale anime series.
Mm-hmm.
They will, a lot of them become live-action movies,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them become OAVs, so released direct to video, just
Mm-hmm.
3 or so episodes. So an exception to the rule is Yuri on Ice, which was released first as an anime. Um, uh, I also have favorite authors. And then there's some authors which I love one book and another one really gives me a squick. So, for example, Rihito Takarai has a very sweet title called 7 Days. And there's another one, so 7 Days is set in high school, about a very popular kid who's always being confessed to, and he will always give the people who confess to him a trial of 7 days, and if he hasn't fallen in love with them when 7 days are up, he will turn them down regretfully. But an upperclassman kind of jokingly asks to go out with him, who's a boy, and he accepts. And so it's about how their relationship unfolds over those 7 days. So I really enjoyed that. And then there's another exceedingly popular title by the same author, 10 Count. And 10 Count,
I like 10 Count.
There's good. I'm saying things that I have discomfort with, and there are things I like about 10 Count, but it's about somebody with mysophobia and this sort of an assistant therapist dude on his own time offers to help him help the misophobic man through exposure therapy to several things. And it's just, I mean, there's a sort of masochistic, sadistic dynamic that unfolds, but it's not like out and out BDSM, which is also fine, but that's where there's not necessarily the consent amount of the one character agreeing to that sort of treatment. Okay, so there's some series that I consider incredibly beautiful and that are now out of print, so I would recommend them personally as for interlibrary loan. One of them is called Sakende Yaruze, Shout Out Loud. It's a 5-volume series by Satosumi Takaguchi, and it's about voice actors who, well, the main character is a young man who's saddled with his teenage son out of nowhere. He didn't even know he had this teenage son. So the voice actor needs to earn more money, and so he's just had mainstream anime roles in the past. He starts to delve into BL roles, and he encounters another voice actor who's been at it for years, and so there's an interesting sort of teasing relationship between them, and the teen son meanwhile has his own awakening. It's the art is beautiful. It's the only series so far where I've seen hockey displayed. So definitely look for that. There's also a series called Brilliant Blue. So that's 2 volumes by Sayami Yorita. And it features an architect who's summoned back to the countryside to help his ailing dad's construction business. And he encounters an elementary school classmate who's intellectually a little dim, but has this really sweet spirit. And first, I mean, the classmate grows on him over time, and there's the aspect of one of them being, of the classmate being working for a contractor for the first character's company, and so there is some power dynamics there, and the distinction between sort of the together, how this one character is all sort of originally a go-getter, but he realizes eventually that he wants to stay in the countryside, and there's a lot of humor and a lot of interesting side characters. I'd really recommend you check it out. Some key other BL authors that are up and coming would be, when I say up and coming, I mean that are currently published today. As we said, Shungiku Nakamura, Junjo Romantica, and World's Greatest First Love, Sekaiichi Hatsukoi. In her case, those have both been turned into anime series, not just an OAV or not just a live action film. So, where was I? Okay. And then I Hear the Sunspot became a live action film, and I would call it a sensitive, appealing treatment of blossoming feelings between a loudmouth university student and his hard of hearing schoolmate. And I mean, it's just a lot of feelings about sort of the dynamic in their relationship, about Kate, I think his name is Kate Yoi, about the hard of hearing classmates' gradual additional loss of hearing and how that makes him feel, and it's really worth a read.
This is one of the representations I could say recommend people to talk about with disability representation.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Tanaka Ogeretsu has beautiful art and interesting storylines. Her escape journey features a couple that got together in high school, then broke up badly, and then they encounter each other again in university, become lovers again, but some of the same issues crop up again. And she's got a lot of other appealing series, although I don't know how many of them are released in English currently. There are others that I wish were still popular, including Yugi Yamada, who had multiple titles released in the 2000s, and her stories involve a lot of tugging on the heartstrings as well as humor. Not everybody likes her art style, which is sort of it sort of looks a little dirty sometimes, a little like scruffy. Maybe scruffy is the word, but I just enjoy her characters a lot. And here's another case where I enjoy a title, yet it makes me uneasy. Mimeko Ari's Hitorijime, My Hero, which was made into an anime series.
Oh yeah, that one's a teacher and a student.
That one is a teacher and a student, and it's the relationship is weird. But the student is such an appealing character that I will tolerate a lot for him. He just, well, I won't go into him because I could talk for a long time.
It's actually licensed on Amazon Prime, so if you want to check out the anime.
Yeah. One thing I didn't say about BL in general is that, like, say, shonen titles and seinen titles, it covers a huge variety of settings, of subgenres, ranging from fantasy to the Yakuza, a lot of stuff about Yakuza, to salarymen romances set in the office, workplace, to, of course, a lot of high school ones. There's a currently being issued series by Ranmaru Zaria's Coyote, which is an urban fantasy that features werewolves and forbidden love. And then there's Miu Otsuki, who has also written a lot, but her manga Calling is about an ordinary salaryman who encounters an AV actor, and they just a romance blossoms between them, but at the same time, he doesn't know quite how to feel about his boyfriend's work. A very popular anime, BL anime, is Love Stage, and that is created by a team, Eiki Eiki and Taishi Zhao, who have been responsible for a lot of English language manga early on. Of course, I'm blanking on some of the names now, but they also have dabbled a little bit in Yuri, and they do a fair amount of queer baiting. There's a series called Princess Princess, which was both an anime and a manga.
Oh yeah,
it's about cross-dressing, but only in the last volume, not with the main characters, do we really have a relationship emerge with anybody, among anybody. Another title or another mangaka I'd love to mention is Ko Yoneda, who is responsible for No Touching at All, and Even So I Will Love You Tenderly, which are both office salaryman type romances, but the first one deals pretty sensitively with somebody being bullied because he was outed in the workplace, and also coping with issues of loss and things like that. And Even So I Will Love You Tenderly is a kind of sequel featuring another couple. Twittering Birds Never Fly is still being issued, and it's a story of a I shouldn't go too much into that, but it's another Yakuza story, and it's very dramatic, a fair amount of bloodshed, and somebody who's very used to having sex and has it at the drop of a hat, but is not at all used to being vulnerable in any emotional way. And the person who falls in love with him. Two more mangaka, and then I'll wrap up. Oh no, maybe just one. Shoko Hidaka. I love her gorgeous, semi-realistic art style. She's written, an early volume of hers was Restart, but she's got a still being released series called Does the Flower Bloom, as well as a series called Blue Morning. Blue Morning has, again, it's a historical series, but it has some of those consent issues which trouble me. I really have enjoyed Does the Flower Bloom. About it has an age gap with the college student and the businessman. And okay, one more book. And incidentally, I have all these books piled near me that I wanted to show you, but I forgot to. I'm so sorry. But this one is a volume that has been put out by Viz, by Mainstream Viz, and it's called That Blue Sky Feeling. It's the two main characters, these two characters, kind of become somewhat romantic with each other by the end, but it's a 3-volume series, and it's more about the character who identifies as gay becoming more comfortable in expressing that, and then the girl character is portrayed sensitively as well. It's but another thing to note about it is that the art is by a man, which I found interesting. Okay, that was a lot of stuff we covered. We'd love to hear from you about what your favorite BL titles are. What are your preferences as to story types, and what bothers you about BL. Anything you wanted to add on that?
I'm just really surprised we actually couldn't get into Yuri this time. I thought that we were going to get into Yuri, but it's like one of the things where we actually went too long. Just
yes, I'm so sorry to have gone so long, but we are very grateful that you joined us.
No, it's okay.
And and I'll have a bunch to say about Yuri before, and we might tackle some other stuff during that next time. But yeah. So, see you next time and take care.
またね
また来週。